Discover the amazing transformation, a billionaire dad's touching encounter with a poor mom at a local food bank. Michael Reed, the sharp, ambitious titan of Texas corporate life, stood at the edge of his high-rise office, gazing out at a skyline that mirrored his success. The sprawling city below pulsed with energy, yet he felt utterly detached. A billionaire at 42, with a portfolio of companies and a bank account laden with zeros, Michael had everything except human connection. Each board meeting felt like a weighty ritual, formulas of numbers replacing laughter long since disappeared from his life. Yet, he was about to confront a reality that would rend apart the careful architecture of his existence. His estranged father, the man he had fought to distance himself from for years, was dying. The news ricocheted through him, souring the taste of his success. Should he return to the city where he spent his childhood crawling through emotions he thought he'd left behind? The ticking clock in his office now seemed deafening, each second urging him toward a choice he dreaded. More than the estrangement, there loomed a deeper fear, the reflection of his father's choices and the gnawing feeling that he had become everything he once resented. The looming reunion forced on him an internal conflict: should he hold tightly to this life he had meticulously crafted, or dare to confront the darkness of his origin? An irrational anger bubbled under the surface. Did his father embody the traits he had fought hard to shake off, or was it an excuse to silence his own discomfort? As part of a family obligation, he found himself amidst unfamiliar surroundings, a local food bank, a stark contrast to the polished marble of his office. Here, faces told stories of struggle, resilience, and an authenticity he had long abandoned. It was a universe far from his calculating business dealings, yet a magnetic force pulled him in. Enter Sarah Collins. Amidst the chaos of cans and desperate needs, her laughter resonated, a beautiful light glimmering in a somber room. The sight of her juggling both her children and responsibilities sent jolts of discomfort through him. Uninvited, a sense of admiration wafted over him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each subsequent encounter with Sarah blurred the lines of his reinforced walls. Watching her navigate the chaos of two jobs, the sacrifices illuminated right before his eyes. He retreated to his empty penthouse following long days, his luxurious surroundings now emphasizing the solitude. Did her choices, so born from desperation, make her stronger than his meticulously curated achievements? Then came an unthinkable twist, a hidden family legacy surfacing, a secret intertwining with Sarah's life in a way he could never have imagined. A rush of empathy clawed through his stern resolve, forcing him to question the very foundations he had built his success upon. Was he nothing more than a culmination of material wealth? The realization crashed over him, prompting an unsettling tension in his gut. Now, sacred familial ties mingled with ambitions crafted through alienation. In this tumultuous struggle, how could he choose between the weight of expectations and the unmistakable pull of connection that Sarah represented? With the pressure mounting and secrets unraveling, Michael faced the kind of decision that could alter his life forever. Could he abandon the corporate world he conquered for a woman who so fiercely embodied resilience? As echoes of his past and the fragile threads of his future collided, it became palpably clear. Every choice from here on out risked either revealing the warmth of community or the bitter chill of isolation. Michael stood at the intersection of choice and consequence, battling an unsettling urge to flee back to his comfortable, isolated existence. As he reflected on Sarah, her laughter haunted him, weaving through his thoughts like a thread of light in his carefully built fortress. He always prided himself on his control, but the day after their last encounter, he found himself back at the food bank, drawn inexplicably to her. Arriving there again felt like stepping into a different world, a space vibrant with raw emotion. The air buzzed with purpose as volunteers sorted food and organized donations, each movement seamless yet chaotic. Michael's heart raced. He approached cautiously, an intruder among a sea of resilience. Just as he hesitated, Sarah appeared, carrying a toddler on one hip while adjusting the sagging strap of a worn satchel with her free hand. Her smile emerged, effortless and genuine, momentarily disarming Michael. "Hey! I didn't expect to see you again," she exclaimed, her warm demeanor inviting. "I wanted to help," he stumbled. The words felt hollow under their weight, but he pressed on, desperately wanting to bridge a gap that had haunted him since childhood. "Great. We could always use another pair of hands," she replied, walking him through the tasks, her casual authority channeling energy he hadn't anticipated. As he shifted boxes, he couldn't shake the gnawing sensation that he was stepping into a realm so alien yet increasingly familiar. The more time he spent there, the more Michael began to reflect on his own life. The contrast between the vitality around him and the sterile silence of his penthouse was disconcerting. He met mothers like Sarah, whose laughter echoed off the walls, and found himself envious of their community. The depth of their support starkly contrasted with his history of isolation, a swell of longing rising within. He caught himself mid-sentence. The hesitation struck him, empowering a raw desire to be vulnerable. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," she replied, eyeing him with an openness that ignited a flicker of hope. "Do you ever regret your choices?" He was surprised by the question, raw and unfiltered, akin to a mirror forcing him to confront his reflection. "Sometimes," she admitted, a thoughtful frown mixed with vulnerability shadowing her features. "But I also find strength in them. Every hard choice leads to a better tomorrow for my kids." Strength that was a quality he had always sought, yet had misattributed to wealth and status rather than authentic connection and sacrifice. Visions of his father crackled in his mind. Did he have a choice to be different? The thought sent a shudder through him. He was not ready for self-revelation but found himself drawn deeper into Sarah's world, the everyday becoming significantly weighty. Feeling the weight of revelations pressing on his heart, Michael finally resolved to examine this legacy he fought so hard to avoid. As the day wound down, their hands brushed briefly as they shared a box. A spark ignited between them, one that unsettled him yet thrilled his core. "I need to get back," Michael finally murmured, the mix of fear and exhilaration swirling within him. "Will you come back?" she asked, her gaze penetrating, leaving him at a precipice. He nodded, but the decision loomed large, the grave choice of confronting his legacy or retreating into the solitude of his past. Anxiety turned into determination filled his chest as he took one last look at the food bank before stepping outside. Could he embrace transformation, or would he remain shackled to his past? The moment he crossed the threshold into the night, he understood one undeniable truth: the path ahead demanded a reckoning he could neither ignore nor evade. What awaited him at home, in the corporate realm, or within himself was uncertain, yet he could feel a loop multiplying around him, one that tethered a connection he never expected with choices yet to be made. In that instant, he knew change was the only certainty now, and how he chose to embrace it would define not just his future, but those entwined with his story. As the door closed behind him, Michael realized he had to confront a revelation lurking in the backdrop, one that could turn him into the man he needed to be, or push him further into isolation. The moment for clarity had come. Michael felt the cool night air wrap around him like a shroud as he walked away from the food bank, his mind racing with thoughts he had long buried. The neon lights from the city flickered dully in his peripheral vision, their vibrant hues dimmed by the heavy introspection that weighed on him. Each step felt like a rebuke against his meticulously crafted reality, a life of luxury that had become increasingly hollow. He turned his focus inward, grappling with a lingering question that threatened to unravel everything he thought he knew. What had been the cost of his control? His upbringing had taught him that life was about power and success, principles that had guided him up the corporate ladder, but now, standing on the precipice of vulnerability, he wondered if he had sacrificed too much in the name of stability. The memory of Sarah's laugh danced dangerously in his mind. It was not just her laughter, it was the authenticity behind her spirit, the stark contrast to the chit-chat of boardroom banter, which felt like an empty echo of significance. Each laugh he remembered, every joyful interaction among the volunteers, stirred something within him that he had suppressed for too long. Could people like Sarah, a single mother who faced hardships daily, be the key to unlocking the parts of himself he had locked away? When he reached his penthouse, he paused at the door, hand hovering over the handle. The apartment felt too large, a cage built from glass and steel, with views of a city bustling below, yet it was merely a facade. The silence inside was suffocating. He dropped his ties on the granite countertop as if shedding weights, and the very act made him question whose expectations he was carrying. Images of Sarah's dedication, her tenacity in the face of adversity, danced through his thoughts, igniting a restlessness that tugged insistently at his conscience. As he poured a glass of whiskey, each sip tasted bitter, not from the alcohol, but from the realization of how poorly he had quantified his life. He used to think he had arrived by winning in the game of life, but perhaps it was time to redefine the rules. He pulled out his laptop, barely sparing it a glance as he began typing a list he never thought he'd need: ways to contribute, ways to connect, ways to change. Among the items, he noted, learn about the challenges families face, volunteer regularly, and a surprising entry, get to know Sarah. The reality of inviting connection felt like reaching into the unknown, and fear crept in, reminding him of the facade he had hidden behind. But then anger surged, an anger not directed towards anyone but himself for having waited so long to make a difference, even in small ways. Why had he hesitated so much when the possibility of fulfillment lay just beyond the familiar? With shaky hands, Michael closed the laptop and turned his gaze to the skyline. He wanted to believe that change was not only possible but necessary, yet self-doubt began to creep in. Was he merely motivated by guilt or a genuine desire to grow? He considered the risk of rejection, the fear of opening himself to others, especially to Sarah. But there was also the exhilarating possibility of becoming someone worthy of the connections he so yearned for. Determining not to overthink the journey ahead, he resolved to call Sarah. The idea carried the weight of profound determination and vulnerability. He wanted to become more than just a man entrenched in the corporate grind. He wanted to be a figure of hope, possibly even to Sarah's children. As he pressed the number, a sudden realization gripped him. He'd have to uncover parts of his heart that had grown numb from years of neglect. Transformation would demand facing fears he had long ignored. The coolness of the phone pressed against his ear acted as a stark reminder of how deeply intertwined hope and fear could be. Before the call connected, Michael felt the pull of two worlds, one of isolation and control, the other of openness and potential. The choice hinged on the moment he had been preparing for. But what he remained unaware of was how this decision would deepen his understanding of not just himself, but the connections that truly matter. The line rang, and he braced himself for whatever lay on the other side. Would this be a chance to broker a new beginning, or would his past drag him back into the shadows? The answer teetered on the edge, shrouded in uncertainty, awaiting his emergence into the light. The dial tone faded, and Sarah's voice came through, full of surprise. Michael? The way she said his name sent an electric charge through him, an affirmation that this was a pivotal moment. Hi, Sarah. It's me, he stumbled, his confidence wavering. The vividly painted words he had rehearsed on his way home dissolved into a fragile whisper. The reality of her presence, however virtual, made the stakes all too real. I wanted to talk, if you have a moment. Of course. Is everything okay? She asked, a hint of concern threading through her tone. He could hear the genuine warmth that characterized her spirit, igniting a flicker of courage in him. Yes, it's just, well, I've been thinking a lot about everything. He fought to keep his voice steady, aware that he was about to tread into uncharted territory. I realized I haven't taken the time to understand what you do or what you go through. I want to help. A short silence hung between them, filled with the weight of unsaid words. Help? She echoed, disbelief cutting through her tone. Michael, I didn't expect to hear that from you. Exactly, he asserted with newfound resolve. I haven't been present. It's time I changed that. The statement swelled within him, empowered by an urgency to lay bare his intentions and become a man forged in authenticity rather than facades. Are you sure? Sarah's skepticism was palpable, a reminder of the chasm that existed between the lives they led. Helping means understanding, and understanding comes from more than just wanting to be a hero. His heart raced at the challenge in her words. They were not mere barriers, they represented a mirror reflecting his fears. You're right. I've spent so long in a world focused on profits and numbers that I've neglected the human side of life. I've been a stranger to genuine connections. A minute passed with Sarah quiet on the other end. He feared she might walk away, dismissing his offer outright as just another attempt to play savior. But her silence transformed into reflection as he continued, driven by a newly discovered resolve. I'd like to volunteer at the food bank with you. I need to see the challenges families face firsthand. I want to meet people struggling to make their lives better, he urged, each word grounded with intent. And, if you're willing, I'd like to get to know you, and your children. Wow, she breathed, a mixture of surprise and an edge of caution tainting her words. That's a lot to take in. I need to think about it, but I appreciate your honesty. The slight rejection stung more than he anticipated, igniting his old habits of retreating into the comfort of self-doubt. I understand, and I don't expect you to say yes right away. But I hope to show you that I'm serious about this, about changing. An urgency gripped him to prove his newfound convictions, both to her and himself. It won't be easy, Michael. You might see things you don't expect, she warned, her voice softening, reminding him of the vulnerability that came with real-life experiences. The acknowledgement sparked an insatiable curiosity within him. What hidden corners of his own identity might he explore in this pursuit? I'm ready for that, he declared, feeling the weight of commitment rather than choice begin to settle into his bones. Okay, she finally replied, a warmth returning to her tone. Let's take this one step at a time. I'll be honest with you, if this is about helping, it might be the hardest thing you've ever done. The challenge invited him in, pushing against the walls he had erected. His thoughts swirled between excitement and trepidation, the paths ahead branching out like a fork in the road, one leading deeper into vulnerability, the other back to the safety of indifference. As the conversation came to a close, Michael felt a flicker of hope seep through the cracks of uncertainty. He realized the real challenge lay not just in facing the hardships around him but in confronting his own walls. The path to genuine connection demanded an unveiling of layers he had buried for too long. After hanging up the call, he stared at the skyline again, feeling the weight of his decisions hanging heavy in the night air. A storm of thoughts raged within him. What if the journey into this new world changed him in ways he could hardly expect? What if he finally discovered a part of himself long confined within the labyrinth of power and control? Before he could succumb to that daunting possibility, a gnawing realization settled within him that this was only the beginning of a more profound struggle, the kind that would test every fiber of his character. But as uncertainty loomed like storm clouds, he understood it was a risk worth taking. It was time to decide if becoming a person of substance and connection was worth the fight. Michael knew that soon he'd face the true nature of his commitment, and with it, the chance to confront the shadows of his past. The moment for action was drawing near, but would he be ready to embrace it fully when the time arrived? Michael's first day volunteering at the food bank dawned without the anticipated clarity or excitement he had hoped for. The early morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the organized chaos of the facility. Panic clawed at his insides as he slid his hands into the pockets of his worn-out jacket, his mind racing with the enormity of his decision. The smell of coffee mingled with the earthy sense of canned goods and produce. Michael caught sight of Sarah setting up a distribution table, her attention fully absorbed in the task as she humorously bantered with a fellow volunteer. The warmth in her demeanor radiated outward, a stark contrast to the cold unease that hugged him tightly. Taking a deep breath, he approached, conscious that with every step, he was pulling away from the comfort of his former self. Hey, Sarah, he managed to sound nonchalant, but the slight tremor in his voice betrayed him. Her face lit up upon seeing him, but the moments of surprise quickly morphed into a more cautious demeanor. Michael. Glad you made it. Are you ready for a day of hard work? Yeah. I think so, he replied, not quite convincing himself. They made quick eye contact, and Michael felt an undeniable urge to impress her. He plucked up a bag of onions and slumped against the wall, staring at the mass of supplies awaiting distribution. He had been accustomed to high-stakes decisions behind a boardroom table, yet now, the intricacies of their mission felt dauntingly foreign. A lot of families count on this, Sarah explained, her voice earnestly inflected. The work we do here means everything to them. The gravity in her tone struck him hard, as if each word landed squarely on the frail architecture of his ego. He nodded, although doubt threatened to overshadow his resolve. Would he face the reality of those who struggled, or remain pricking the surface of a world he barely understood? His internal conflict raged, feeding doubts and blasting holes through this newfound persona. As the morning wore on, Michael found himself sorting through boxes filled with canned goods, an entirely different kind of strategy than he was familiar with. He methodically moved items around, but beneath the surface, a quiet unease grew. He was out of his element, and the simplicity of stacking cans felt nothing like the adrenaline of a corporate takeover or a glittering gala. After an hour of sorting, Sarah approached, her brows slightly furrowed. "Want to take a break?" she asked, concern flickering across her features. "No, I'm good," he insisted. "I want to keep going." Her eyes searched for the truth beneath his confidence, and he felt exposed, the layers of his bravado peeling away. "Michael, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. Everyone does. It's a lot to process." He tried to brush off her concern, but her understanding drew out something deeper within him, his instinct to guard against vulnerability. "I'm not overwhelmed," he asserted, albeit weakly. "I just want to prove that I can be here, making a difference." In that moment, he realized he wasn't here merely to help, it was also to challenge his own fears, to confront the stark difference between the life he led and the lives of those he saw around him. This was his chance to look. "It's not about proving something," she interrupted quietly. "It's about being here. Understanding what these people go through, feeling it in your bones." The clarity of her words struck him profoundly. Perhaps genuine connection didn't require grand gestures, but rather the acceptance of raw discomfort. He found himself questioning if he could withstand this storm of struggle and empathy. Yet, the moment shifted from introspection to action as the door swung open, revealing a line of families awaiting necessities. The atmosphere turned tense, the anticipation palpable. He could see the apprehension in their eyes and felt a surge of urgency. This was reality. This was life. Michael shifted his focus to the task at hand, reminding himself that every interaction held a weight he needed to absorb. As he handed a bag to a mother who cradled her infant, his pulse quickened. The depth of their need and gratitude flooded over him like a tide. But even as he forged ahead, the gnawing question loomed: would he truly be able to embrace the lessons this experience forced upon him, or would he retreat into the shadows of comfort he had known so well? As the final family left, he felt a mix of exhilaration and dread swirling within. He had seen their realities, but could he carry that weight with authenticity? The challenge was just beginning, and he felt the stirrings of transformation stirring deep within him, beckoning him toward the edge of uncomfortable revelation. This was more than just about lending a hand, it was about unlearning the man he had been, molding a new identity that embraced the messy beauty of connection. But as he turned to Sarah, determination mixed with trepidation once more. Could he step fully into the unknown, or would he falter against the pull of his past? As the last echoes of conversation faded into the background, Michael felt the exhaustion of the day's work weigh on him in a way he hadn't anticipated. The energy of the families he had encountered buzzed around him, forcing him to confront uncharted emotional territory. He had initially come here seeking to lend a hand, but he now realized he was also battling an inner turmoil that couldn't be ignored. As volunteers began clearing the tables, Michael observed their camaraderie, their laughter, their shared anecdotes of hardship and hope. It struck him that while he was physically present, he remained emotionally distant, locked in a battle with his own past and identity. With each interaction, he felt the rise of an unfamiliar discomfort, as though he were unpeeling layers of armor he'd worn for years. However, the tangible feeling of their appreciation began to chip away at the facade he had built around himself. "Michael?" Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts, grounding him in the moment. "You did really well today, you know. It's not easy to step outside your comfort zone." "Thanks," he replied, modesty creeping in, but he sensed a deeper conversation bubbling beneath the surface, one that would either validate or challenge his efforts. "Can I ask you something?" she continued, her gaze unwavering. "Sure," he said, bracing for a confrontation he didn't quite understand. "Why did you decide to come here?" Her question landed softly yet resonated deeply, pushing him to unravel the threads of his motivations. Michael hesitated, scrutinizing her bright eyes that carried kindness spiked with curiosity. Honestly, I thought I needed to make a change in my life. Something deeper than the corporate world. I wanted to feel useful, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded, absorbing his words. But you seem more focused on proving something to yourself, she said. It's not about useful, it's about connection and understanding. You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone. Sometimes just showing up is enough. Her insights pierced through his spiraling internal dialogue, forcing him to confront an unsettling truth. He had been retreating into the void of his own expectations, seeking validation without truly engaging with the realities around him. He thought of the families he had faced today, his heart ached for their narratives and the burdens they bore. Michael felt his facade slipping, the image of a billionaire businessman, forever shielded and unswayed, questioned by this newfound awareness. Could he truly open his heart, even partially? He sensed a shift inside himself, a tremor of vulnerability he had long buried. I guess I didn't want to feel weak, he confessed, the weight of his admission spilling between them, heavy with the burden of his past. That fear of weakness can be a prison, Michael, Sarah replied gently. Let it go. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's that quiet voice at the end of the day that says, I will try again tomorrow. Her words wrapped around him, igniting a yearning to embrace vulnerability. Admitting his struggle felt like standing on the edge of something vast and daunting. Would he allow himself to be exposed to this new reality? As he stood in relation to her perspective, Michael recognized that this journey wasn't solely about others, it was also about redefining his identity, challenging every preconception. He envisioned a version of himself who could intertwine both strength and compassion, a combination he had always thought was incompatible. Taking a deep breath, he nodded firmly. I want to do better. I want to really feel what they feel. I think I can do it. Good, she said, the warmth in her voice brightening the air. Just remember, the most meaningful impact often comes when we allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are. The conversation haunted him on the drive home, echoing repeatedly in his mind. He considered the stark contrast between the polished persona he had adorned and the unfiltered truth Sarah had illuminated. As he settled into bed that night, remorse stirred restlessly alongside determined resolve. What would he uncover tomorrow at the food bank? How deeply could he allow himself to engage in their stories, their triumphs, and their struggles? The question loomed as he drifted into a restless sleep, hinting at the gravity of the reckoning he was beginning to face. The time had come to peel back the layers. Would he finally confront the shadows that held him hostage, or would he skirt around the edges of complexity? Michael awoke to the muted light of dawn sneaking through his window, stirring a trepidation within him. Today felt different, imbued with a sense of awakening that electrified his nerves. As he prepared for the day ahead, he lingered on Sarah's words. They had burrowed into the depths of his consciousness, compelling him to examine the layers of himself he had long sheltered under the guise of success. The drive to the food bank felt longer than usual, the familiar streets morphing into a labyrinth of introspection. Contrary to the unshakable persona he had built in the corporate world, today he carried the weight of vulnerability like a heavy cloak. How would he channel that into something meaningful? Would he risk fully engaging with the people he aimed to assist, exposing his heart instead of staying behind the wall of his privilege? As he parked, the ordinary chaos of the food bank emerged, alive with energy and purpose. Volunteers congregated, sharing smiles and laughter, a vibrant testament to the spirit of community he had only recently begun to recognize. Michael took a deep breath, feeling the trepidation again. This was his moment not to merely show up, but to genuinely connect. He stepped inside, greeted by a familiar sight, a mix of families and individuals eagerly awaiting their turn. This time, their stories called to him louder than before. Refusing to slip into a passive observer role, Michael approached a mother juggling two small children while managing a conversation with another volunteer. Her weariness illuminated the sacrifices she made, and he felt an internal push to engage. Hi. I'm Michael, he said, forcing his voice to rise above the noise, despite the embarrassment creeping in at his intrusion. How's your day going? She turned to him, her expression one of cautious curiosity. Just another day trying to make things work, she replied, a small smile breaking through her fatigue. The simplicity of her response struck a chord. Michael, accustomed to transactional exchanges, found purpose in the genuine connection blooming in that instant. What's your name? He prompted, leaning in to establish a connection. Ella, she said, her eyes carrying years of wisdom and resilience. And these two, she gestured at her children, are my whole world. Michael listened as she recounted her daily rituals, the struggles and triumphs of motherhood. Each word drew him deeper into her reality, breaking down the barriers he had unwittingly erected. A realization began to unfurl. The strength Ella exhibited was different from what he had always deemed powerful. This was raw and honest, laced with hardship yet buoyed by unyielding love. Do you ever feel overwhelmed? He asked, surprised at his own willingness to plunge deeper into a conversation he once might have avoided. Oh, all the time, Ella chuckled, a refreshing honesty in her voice. But I try to focus on today, just making it through. Their conversation unfolded like an intricate tapestry, weaving Michael's desire for connection with Ella's fortitude. As they spoke, he began to grapple with notions of strength and vulnerability, stripping away the persona he'd always clung to. As the afternoon pressed on and volunteers bustled around them, Michael felt a transformation coursing through him. He no longer feared weakness. Instead, he embraced the lessons that came in the honest exchanges. In listening to Ella, he not only understood her life but also unraveled fractured aspects of his own. Before he knew it, the session was drawing to a close. As the last of the families departed, he caught Ella's gaze one last time. Thank you for sharing your story, he said sincerely, a piece of his heart laid bare. You've really opened my eyes. She smiled, a glimmer of pride visible behind the fatigue. You never know when a little kindness can change someone's perspective. Sometimes just being here is what matters. Michael left the food bank that day with a burgeoning sense of purpose simmering within him. He had begun to realize that his worth did not stem solely from success or his bank account. Instead, it flourished in the connections he nurtured and the empathy he developed. But as he drove home, the echoes of Ella's words haunted him, instilling a question that lingered in the air. How would he continue to build on this awakening? What would happen when he faced the more profound truths of his past? The ride grew heavier with anticipation and uncertainty. The time for answers and decisions was creeping closer, pushing him to confront the pieces of himself he had yet to embrace. As Michael entered his home, its polished surfaces and designer furniture felt foreign to him. The luxury once offered him solace now seemed overshadowed by the raw emotions he had just encountered. He moved through the spacious living room, the echoes of conversations and genuine laughter dissipating into a lingering silence that felt hollow. A sudden wave of guilt washed over him, the stark contrast between his life and Ella's reality gnawed at his conscience. He settled on the couch, staring blankly at the meticulously arranged bookshelf filled with self-help books and business biographies. Each spine represented another quest for success, but today they offered little comfort. The sessions at the food bank had ignited something deep within him, an invitation to examine his values and motivations. A growing restlessness bubbled beneath the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. That evening, instead of the usual array of spreadsheets and investment reports, Michael found himself reaching for a notebook from his desk. He flipped through the pages filled with notes on quarterly projections, but they felt trivial now. Instead, he began to write about his experience with Ella, her struggles, and the remarkable strength that emanated from her. I want to make a difference, he scribbled, his pen moving frantically across the page. I need to connect more deeply with those around me. The realization startled him. He was craving something more than financial success. He was yearning for authentic human connection. His corporate triumphs, he noted, never held a candle to the significance of understanding and helping another person. With every stroke of the pen, he wrestled with his crafted identity. Michael had mastered the art of business, yet here he was, stripped of his armor, confronting the discomfort of his emotional vulnerability. What if he channeled this awakening into a new venture? What if he used his resources and influence to empower others like Ella? The idea swirled within him, an exhilarating prospect mingled with fear. He had always been the one making decisions behind closed doors, hidden away in the cocoon of the corporate world. Now, he envisioned forging a path that would take him into the communities he had previously overlooked. He could offer more than financial aid. He could create platforms for voices that needed to be heard, providing opportunities and connections that would foster growth. However, the comfort of his established routines beckoned. What if people resisted his efforts? What if his attempts to connect were met with suspicion or resentment? Doubt trickled in, momentarily clouding his resolve. He had amply built success on bold decisions, but this felt different. Vulnerability was wrapped in uncertainty. As the night faded, Michael made plans to revisit the food bank and seek out Ella. He needed guidance, someone to help navigate this terrain of compassion he was unaccustomed to. In that moment of resolve, he grasped the fragility of change it would require, pushing past his comfort zones and grappling with the criticisms that might arise. The idea of being truly seen, both in his strengths and weaknesses, sent a ripple through his core. The next chapter of his journey awaited, yet he felt paralyzed, poised at the precipice of action. The morning following his decision, he found himself questioning everything yet again. How could he initiate this process of change? What if his well-meaning intentions weren't enough? The echoes of Ella's smile paired with her genuine wisdom lingered in his mind, offering a flicker of hope even as fear threatened to take hold. As he prepared for the day, a gnawing uncertainty pushed him to face a more daunting question. Could he dare to share his story of transformation with those he wished to support? Would he find the courage to be truly vulnerable himself? This day would mark a turning point, he knew. It was time to confront the doubts that stood between him and the true purpose that awaited on the other side. But would he be ready to fully embrace that journey, allowing the levers of change to shift beneath him? Michael paced around his sleek kitchen island, the polished marble counter reflecting the early morning light but doing nothing to brighten the growing dread coiling in his stomach. He was no stranger to the weight of expectations, having climbed each rung of corporate hierarchy with unwavering determination. Yet, the impending confrontation with his own fragility left him questioning if he had the fortitude to truly engage with the world outside his immaculate bubble. Today, he would step back into the food bank, no longer a mere observer but a participant eager to learn and contribute. His heartbeat quickened as he imagined Ella's spirited laughter and the authenticity of her struggles. Would she see through the facade he had worn so long? Would she embrace the vulnerability he now sought to expose? Michael grabbed his car keys, the metal sharp and cool against his fingers, grounding him momentarily. As he opened the door, a gust of cool air met him. The tangible shift from his warmth indoors to the brisk reality outside mirrored his internal state, a contrast. Comfort against discomfort, safety against the unknown. Arriving at the food bank, the familiar buzz of activity greeted him, a cacophony of chatter, laughter, and the rustling of bags filled with essentials. He spotted Ella sorting through donations, her focus unwavering. The sight of her ignited a spark of determination in him. Maybe she could help him navigate this unfamiliar territory. "Hey, Ella," he called, his voice carrying across the room. She turned, her eyes brightening with recognition, and his heart surged. It wasn't just her smile, it was the understanding that he was stepping forward from the shadows of his privilege into a challenging light. "Michael. You came back," she said, wiping her hands on her apron as she approached him. "I wasn't sure if you'd show up." "I had to," he admitted, grappling with the right words. "I've been thinking a lot about our conversations. I really want to do something meaningful, but I'm not entirely sure how." Ella studied him for a moment, her gaze penetrating in a way that shredded his defenses. "What do you mean by meaningful?" "There are plenty of ways to help, but what you really need to know is, what are you willing to give?" The question struck him hard. He had always approached charity and philanthropy with the mindset of a businessman calculating donations, assessing impact as if each interaction were another project to oversee. But now he had to confront a deeper transaction, the exchange of genuine humanity. "I want to create opportunities for people," Michael responded hesitantly. "Not just give to a cause but to actually enable people to find their own paths." Sounds idealistic, but it's the reality of it that matters. "How can you truly connect?" Ella ventured, her tone both challenging and encouraging. Michael felt the gravity of her words. He had been prepared to write checks, support initiatives, but could he actually take the time to build relationships, to dive into lives different from his own? Insufficiency gnawed at him. I want to learn. I want to share my story with people who might relate. But I fear judgment. What if they don't understand? Ella's expression softened, yet maintained a firm resolve. Vulnerability is scary. But the truth is, everyone is battling their own demons, Michael. Sharing that fear could be the bridge you need to make that connection. The floodgates of his vulnerability inched open as doubts slithered back in. What if the power of his story was met with anything less than understanding? Could he bear the weight of rejection from those he wished to uplift? But Ella's gentle encouragement urged him forward. Your journey matters, don't underestimate it. Come back next week, but this time be ready not just to listen but to share. You have more to offer than resources, you have experiences that can inspire hope. Michael nodded, a newfound purpose weaving through his thoughts. This conversation was not the conclusion of his journey, it was merely the opening act. Could he rise to her challenge? Embracing not just the stories of those he aimed to help, but also exposing his own flaws and triumphs? As he left the food bank, each step resonated with a quiet roar echoing within him, a mix of apprehension and eagerness. The day had unveiled a vital question still brewing. Could he forge new connections while bearing his soul? Returning home, he stared into the mirror, grappling with himself. The stakes were higher than ever, and the next encounter loomed like an unscalable wall. Would he rise to meet it, or would the comfort of defensiveness beckon him back into the cocoon he knew so well? The clock ticked softly, each sound echoing with a reminder, the moment for action approached. The true test awaited with Ella next week, and he knew it was time to embrace the storm within him. Michael Reed stood in the middle of the bustling food bank, an environment that once felt so foreign, now cocooned with familiar warmth and opportunity. The casual chaos around him buzzed with animated laughter and meaningful conversations, igniting a heart previously dulled by isolation. Today marked a significant turning point in his life, a moment teetering between vulnerability and courage. As he took a deep breath, he soaked in the realization of what he had achieved. It had been weeks since he first walked through that door, a billionaire seeking purpose, and now he was immersed in genuine connection with every family, every story, every exchange, forging an empathetic bridge where before there was only indifference. His heart pulsated with recognition of the strength found in community. His eyes fell on Ella, her spirit infectious as she coordinated the volunteers. The resolve in her voice, reminding him that true impact stemmed from understanding, echoed in his mind. Was he ready to embrace this challenge fully? He had shared snippets of his experiences, but now he faced the need to lay bare the raw, unpolished truths of who he was and where he had come from. That afternoon, he gathered the volunteers, including Ella, the atmosphere tinged with anticipation. Can I have your attention for a moment? He called out, feeling the weight of his own vulnerability like stones in his stomach. The conversations quieted as people turned to him. I've been on a journey, one filled with disconnection and ambition, he began, words flowing with cautious sincerity. Despite my success, I felt empty. Standing here today, I realized the importance of truly seeing each other, of listening and sharing our stories. His voice wavered, the courage it took to speak his truth surged through him. When I came here, I expected to help as if my resources could be the solution, but what I've learned is that connection is the true catalyst for change. I want to do more than give, I want to understand and contribute in ways that empower not just individuals but entire families. The room fell silent, nods of understanding rippling through the group. He felt a weight lifted, every word connecting him deeper, forging a resolve that had lain dormant for far too long. And I'd like to invite you all to join me, he continued, to share not just your experiences but also your fears, hopes, and dreams. We can build something meaningful together. A murmur of surprise bubbled through the crowd, and he recognized Ella's encouraging smile amidst the sea of skeptical yet intrigued faces. It felt monumental. He was no longer just Michael Reed, the billionaire. He was Michael, a person seeking connection, a bridge between disparate worlds. As the first volunteer stepped up, sharing a story of struggle and renewal, Michael listened, fully present, allowing each word to chisel away the remaining barriers of his past. He felt the power each story held, understanding that this was more than just an outreach program, it was a collaborative journey into vulnerability. By the end of that session, Michael felt transformed. Each story shared open new avenues of realization within him. It dawned on him that his wealth, once a source of isolation, could be strategically redirected towards impactfully connecting with these families, not through mere charity but through empowerment. He envisioned creating workshops, mentorships, and community programs, each initiative a step towards sustainable change. As he navigated home that day, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. He could picture a path filled with complex, beautiful messiness, potential partnerships, initiatives, and connections. The confidence that had once been focused solely on corporate success now flowed into the realm of social responsibility. He pulled out a notebook once more, but instead of listing transactions or quarterly goals, he began sketching ideas for community engagement. How could he foster understanding, resilience, and empowerment? What partnerships could he build to uplift voices that had long remained unheard? Michael wrote furiously, the new purpose invigorating him. He understood that his transformation was not a destination, but an ongoing journey into authentic living. His greatest achievements would no longer be quantifiable in terms of dollar signs, but in the lives he affected, one story at a time. As he prepared for bed that night, he reflected on all he had learned. No longer bound by the darkness of his past, he felt a surge of joy at the thought of forging connections. Each person he met enriched his understanding of the human experience and lit a fire in his chest, sparking a newfound resolve to uplift those around him. Finally, for the first time ever, Michael Reed felt whole. Make sure you don't miss out on more transformative journeys. Subscribe immediately to the channel to stay updated with our exclusive emotional stories. Your support is crucial, so leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and tell us your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this remarkable transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.